We are recording with Dr. Dale Comstock on Thursday, December 5th, 2024 at 6:59 p.m. Eastern. If you guys go in the description, you can find Dale's coaching, his website, his book, his Instagram, his Twitter, and he's got a new book coming out. But the OG book is American Badass. You can go follow him on Instagram, all that good shit. Dale's been on here a zillion times before, and well, I mean, the first thing like last night, seeing, or I think it was yesterday or during the day, some CEO for a health insurance company got whacked, and as with everything, whenever something happens, and I have a contact that I could ask for expert advice on, and I was like, there's very few people who can just reach out to an assassin, and I was like, Dale has a set of skills, so I obviously had texted you, and you're like, fuck yeah, let's do it. So. Um, I don't know if you've seen it or you know anything of it. What I mean, from like baseline knuckle dragging idiot me with no experience, looks like it was just a silenced gun or subsonic round, so he had to rack it, and I don't know, wearing a hoodie. It seems pretty simple, but kind of insane to get away with that in downtown Manhattan. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts, Dale?
People are saying, oh, he was maybe a professional. And so I looked at the video and a couple of things I kind of assessed from that was, yeah, you're right. I think he was using subsonic ammunition. Normally that's what you use as a suppressor. So it was a suppressed pistol. Um, and he's probably using subsonic rounds. That's why he kept racking it, right? I think he fired three shots. He was not trying to catch his brass. I doubt seriously trying to catch his brass. It looked like he was deliberately pulling a slide back on every shot, chambering another round, and the brass was he was ejecting them. Maybe he was catching it. I don't know, but I don't see any reason to. If you were going to do a hit job like that, you know, more than likely you've already sterilized the brass before you loaded the ammunition. You wiped it off, so there's no fingerprints on there. They're going to find out what kind of a caliber it is, just from the ballistics of the bullet. So, um, if you want to, you have to just assume you're not going to be able to pick up the brass in time. You're going to lose one, so you just be prepared for that anyway. So why even worry about it? So I think subsonic ammo, suppressed weapon. Guy fired around 3 rounds. That's why and he was charging the weapon for every shot because there was not enough pressure from the ammo to throw a slide back. So was he a pro? I was looking at, for example, his um, his body language and his demeanor, and one of the things I noticed was on every shot he kind of dropped the weapon, brought the weapon down. There's certain mechanics you look for in an accomplished shooter, and I wasn't seeing that. I seen the gun coming out, he's shooting, and he's dropping it, and he's down here jacking it, and then he brings it back up. Normally in that scenario, a really trained shooter wouldn't bring the gun down. He'd just hold it up, and probably right here he would jack it and roll it back over and shoot, or he'd bring it back here and push it back out and shoot, not lowering it like that. Um, and then just looking at his stance, now the stance is not that telling because I see a lot of guys standing like that when they're when they're doing slow aim fire, they'll stand like that, There's not a lot of recoil, so you don't have to lean into the weapon. So he's kind of standing vertical, but he did seem to be pretty calm and collected, man, and very deliberate in his movements. Um, the other thing I thought about was if he was really a professional and a decent shot, he would have just taken a headshot
Yeah,
first time, shot him right in the back of the head initially,
drop
right?
him.
And two, he would have got a lot closer because he had the opportunity to close the gap and get even closer to take the shot. Why take it from that far away? I mean, he stopped and took a static shot while the target was moving. And I think the first round hit the guy in the back of the calf. You see him hopping around, he falls over. Um, that's telling too. Unless he deliberately intended to shoot the guy in the leg, I doubt it. Why would you shoot the guy in the leg? Because what if he is low? What if he is armed? That guy still has the opportunity to turn, draw a weapon, and shoot back, or get behind cover, or maybe hobble and hop away and jump behind cover. So that's why I said a headshot would have been probably the order of the day, and not a calf shot to start with. So you know, how did he hit? Why did he hit him in the calf? Probably because he was probably a little bit, again, not a accomplished shooter. He probably pulled the trigger kind of hard, and there's a tendency to when people first start learning how to shoot, they pull the trigger and they dip the weapon, the muzzle of the weapon comes down a little bit, and so that would throw the round down. Or they heel the gun, they push up on it, and the muzzle goes up, and a high shot. So he has some issue with trigger manipulation, probably lack of training. Um, and then the fact that he needed to take 3 shots. Okay, why take 3 shots when one to the back of the head could have ended it right away, or one to the back of the head and one center mass in the back. Um, so he wasn't making efficient use of time and accuracy to get off the mark, get off the X. I don't think you want to stand there and admire your work. And so he was kind of slow and deliberate, but that looks like he was cool, calm, and collected. But it could also mean that he could have been some I use the term fearless person, right? Because fearless people are too stupid to realize they're in trouble. They do it
Yeah.
anyways, right? So he was probably fearless, and that's not a good thing. It's not a good trait to have. When I do my coaching, my coaching training for people, I tell them there's 3 types of people. There's a fearless person, too stupid to realize he's in trouble, does it anyways. There's a courageous person who knows he's in trouble but does it anyways. But that doesn't mean he's going to be good at what he has to do. And the third person is the confident person. The person is well trained, experienced, and he's controlling the situation. It's not controlling him. So if I had to categorize him in one of those 3 categories, it'd be fearless, too stupid to realize he's in trouble, but does it anyways, and he's too slow and deliberate. And there's probably some psychopathy there, obviously. And because I thought, man, it was kind of interesting that he just kind of meandered along, took the shots, walked by him, very deliberate, very methodical, then moved between some cars. And then he decided to kind of pick up the pace a little bit, run across the street and jump on an e-bike. Um, the e-bike thing kind of had me wondering too, why would you use an e-bike as a getaway? One, people like to steal e-bikes, so I would be reluctant to ride an e-bike unless I locked it up, because somebody might take the e-bike and then I don't have my getaway vehicle. Um, but I don't know that I'm kind of reading into that one there. But outside of that, everything else, the guy was first of all the backpack was too descript, gray backpack looked kind of square, looked kind of unique, and I think a little bit more easily identifiable than just a regular old black standard, backpack that you can buy anywhere. Or why did he even wear a backpack? Maybe he should have not even had that with him. Everything he needed should have been in his pockets. But that's just one more thing one more identifier. And that the hoodie, okay, that's a good idea because everybody wears hoodies these days, right? He was probably wearing a mask. I couldn't tell by the picture, but he's probably wearing a mask, you know. And that's the other thing I find interesting is a lot of people are taking advantage of the whole COVID pandemic to this day, right? They're wearing masks and everything, and nobody thinks twice of it, right? It's because
Yeah.
everybody just guy's a goofball. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I use masks for some of the ops I do just because now I can, and
Yeah.
who's going to me, right? I'm just scared of COVID. And so I use that as a way to cover my face. So, you know, as a society, we've kind of what's the word I'm looking for? We've kind of enabled this kind of criminal
It
behavior in that we allow
yeah,
people
masks are normalized. It's you don't think
right,
anything of
right.
it.
Yeah, and so, um outside that, the shoes, I noticed somebody sent me a blown up picture of the shoes. Looks like the shoes are like I forget what you call them, but they kind of raise your elevation a little bit by about an inch. So it looks like he was wearing some type of maybe specialized shoe to raise his height, make him a little bit taller. That's a clever idea. Now when somebody describes the bad guys, instead of 5'11", the guy was 6 foot 6'1", but when in fact he really is only 5'11". Was that coincidence? I don't know. But outside of that, my opinion, my opinion is he's had a little bit of experience with that handgun. The fact that he knew to get subsonic ammo, unless now we could all be wrong on that. Maybe it wasn't subsonic ammo. Maybe he just had a bad weapon, and
Yeah.
uh, and maybe there's something wrong with the recoil spring in it. It just didn't have enough to throw the weapon back or hold the slide back. It could have been something like that, but I'm gonna have to assume he was smart enough to buy subsonic ammo. It was obviously a suppressed weapon, so he knew something about it, how to get a suppressor. Maybe he has an FFL license for that. Maybe he stole it. Maybe somebody gave it to him. Maybe he always had it. There's a lot of a lot of variables, man, that you could, I mean, you can't just look at the totality of the picture and just come to one conclusion. But but if you look at all the pieces and parts, I look at it like, a guy was probably an amateur, um, had a little bit of training with his gun, probably smart enough to put subsonic ammo in it, use suppressors, good idea. Um, you know, but I think an accomplished shooter, especially an accomplished assassin, would have gotten a little bit closer. He had the opportunity. He had the opportunity to walk right behind the guy
Right up and just put it on the back of
and,
his head.
keep on going, right? So he could have saved himself a lot of time, and he could have made sure it was a first shot, first kill thing. And but he didn't. For some reason, he thought standing back, let the guy walk away, and then shooting at a moving target, which he missed the first time he hit him in the leg, was a better idea. That tells me he was an amateur, and amateur probably at best. But we're in a time, man, that we live in a very rogue and feral world, and it's dangerous out there, man. It's the most dangerous time of our history, and American history. I mean, people are just now just they get mad. They don't like something you're doing or you're involved in, and so they just go try to kill you. And I mean, I guess that's always been kind of the case, but in the modern age today, I think we see a lot more of it. Like we have the two snipers that try to take out Trump. Okay,
Mhm.
a couple of deranged douchebags. I would argue a little bit more on that one too. Um, those two guys. The evidence, there's intel indicators that say that very good chance these guys were probably recruited by some alphabet company. You probably heard of things like what is it called? Having a brain fart, but basically the agencies had programs where literally it's brainwashing programs, and they have a process like a lot of agencies do, not just American agencies, where they can literally spot, recruit, assess, develop, um, potential, sources to carry out certain jobs, and
Like
was this
Manchurian
guy.
Candidate or MK Ultra shit or
There you go, MK Ultra, man. I keep forgetting. I keep wanting to say NK, and I'm like, it's MK Ultra. There you
North
go,
Korea
right?
Ultra.
And I keep thinking about ultralight beer. I don't know why.
It's North Korean ultralight beer. Yeah, no, I mean, right? I mean, why have all the paperwork and fingerprints of training someone? Instead, find somebody disgruntled,
Yeah,
feed them a specific social media feed, fucking, and then make an anonymous account and just kind of, you put seeds in their head. Hey, you should really take this into your own hands. Trump's in charge. He's a fascist. Go out and make the world do. Not a bad
yeah.
idea.
Well, yeah, and well, it's proven. And there's a lot of these programs out there. You've probably heard of Operation Mockingbird.
Mm-hmm.
That's just insane, man. That is just insane. And there's real evidence of that. MK Ultra, definitely for sure. Was this guy a product of MK Ultra? I don't know why the U.S. government would want to take out this guy, unless they're trying to, incite some type of civil unrest or whatever. Maybe there's
Or
another agenda I'm
or
aware
if
of,
this
right?
was a field test, proof of
Right?
concept.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they've already field tested this. I assure you that. Just like the two snipers that took out Trump. Did
Sure.
you know they were both part of Blackwater at one point?
Yeah.
They were in the
But yeah,
commercial.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Then the
Not
BlackRock
Blackwater,
commercials.
BlackRock. Yeah,
BlackRock. Yeah.
yeah. And and then there's a lot of weird things that were behind that as well as people started tracking down. But everything went silent. I got suppressed. My guess is this guy was probably maybe disgruntled because maybe something happened in his personal life where he was denied some type of insurance or help because of this company, and he decided he's just going to go after the guy on top and he cast the blame on him and take him out. Um, but interesting, and the guy was worth, I think, is making $10 million a year, his salary, $50 million a year, $500 billion company, insurance company, right? And why did this guy not have security on him, right? And this is the other thing is everybody thinks they don't need security, right? Oh, that'll never happen to me. I don't need this. That's what, and so they bank on that until something like this happens. And again, it's my understanding from what I've learned so far. Again, this is just from what I'm reading. Don't know if it's accurate or not, but it sounds like the board, BOD for his company, basically rejected a security security protocol, probably because of cost, which I don't understand that either. But they apparently they declined it or just turned it down, right? So it left the man exposed. And the weird thing is, um, everybody is, especially people with money, is a potential victim. I've literally covered down on billionaires and their families, and I wasn't worried about the billionaire being targeted as much as I was his family, and particularly his children, right? Those are excellent targets for kidnapping, particularly, and but when you got money like that, you leave yourself vulnerable, and I don't know why he didn't have, if I had that kind of money, if I was making even $10 million a year, right, I'm pretty sure I'd invest $1 million a year and have I'd pay for my own personal bodyguards, particularly for my family, and at least have somebody with me, bird dogging me everywhere I go, and the thing about if it was me and I had a bodyguard, how would I manage that? How would I operate? Um, I would probably never have a bodyguard walking next to me, because if I had a bodyguard walking next to me, he's a target too, right? They
Hmm.
could have took them both out, right? What I would have is my security would be a guy as a floater. Essentially, I'd have a surveillance bodyguard guy that never walks with me, but he's maybe 25 feet a walk away from me, walks around me. He doesn't, he's disassociated with me, but he's always watching and looking. He's providing surveillance. He's always looking for, a potential attacker. And so what he's able to do is surprise the attacker, and ambush him before he can shoot the principal. So there's different ways to do things. And it's not always, you have to have a guy walking around with you, and that type of thing. Sometimes it's better just to make it look like you don't have a bodyguard when in fact you do. He's just somewhere off in the perimeter, blending in, and he's watching, looking out for you, and he's looking for anybody that could be potentially stalking you and preparing to attack you. But I think he should have spent some money to have something like that, and he didn't. And well, he'll never know his mistake, because I'm pretty sure, he probably didn't even realize he got killed. I mean, first time it was like, ow, that
Yeah.
hurt. What hit? Something stung me in the leg,
Yeah.
and ow, stung me in the back, and then boom, it was all over. Um, but it is what it is, and everybody's speculating, why this guy was the target. Well, you got to look at the business he's in,
Yeah. I mean, you deny someone's loved one, or
Well,
it doesn't make it right, but it makes sense.
yeah, exactly, man. And again, we live in a world of moral depravity, man. People just don't care about each other. People just don't give a shit if they screw you over for a buck. I go through that quite a bit too. People are your friends until you're no longer useful to them. And a lot of times, there's very few people that you can really trust, especially corporations. Man, they're all in it for the money. These insurance companies. They're all in it for the profits. Do you really think they're sitting around going, my God, we got to help everybody. Let's do everything we can to help people, and we don't have to make amount of money for ourselves. They're not doing that, man. They're like, how do we get more money? How do we
Yeah.
squeeze people money out of people, and these hospitals and stuff. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of mad people out there. There's a lot of upset people out there. And I'll tell you something else, banning firearms, that's not the answer. That's never going to happen. Okay. The ubiquity of firearms. There's so many guns. And then if you did somehow manage to confiscate most people's guns, there's always going to be a black market for it, right? And it becomes another drug trade in and of itself. Hey, look, the war on drugs, what has it yielded? Nothing, man. It's just gotten worse and worse.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. So now we're gonna take guns away. Good luck with that. Everybody that only people will have guns are the people are the bad guys and not the good guys. Um, but yeah, those are my thoughts, man. Professional, no. Amateur, yes. Highly trained, no. Adequately trained, yes. Firearm, good selection, suppressor, subsonic. Um, you know, did he really need to do that? Did he need, I could have taken a 22, and most people would have probably thought it was a little firecracker or something. One shot, it would have not
Yeah.
probably not evoked any attention, to the back of the head. So he shot from too far away. He could have closed the gap, could have took one shot to the head. even with a 22, put the muzzle right up to the back of his melon, and very low profile incident. Probably nobody would have even realized that happened until they might have even thought, oh, look, another bum laying on the sidewalk,
Yeah.
drunk, whatever, right before it really occurred to anybody, oh, this guy's actually dead, unless somebody visually saw him. There was one person there running, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know, man. This is the sign of times, and people that some people may not think they're a target, but actually everybody's a target, and not just for an assassin. I mean, just somebody don't like you. They want to take you out, stab you to death, kill you, poison you, right? So shoot you. You just got to really watch your six, and nobody's immune from that. I mean, I'm not, as you know, I got to watch my back every day. I got to employ, counter surveillance techniques. I'm always looking for people looking for me because I know they are. And I have to be ready for that. I don't have bodyguards. I can't afford bodyguards. I am my own bodyguard. So, it's a function of, and here's the other thing. I'll just point this out. Most people today have no situational awareness, right? And, walk down any street in a big city, and all you see is people walking around, they're texting, look at their phones, they're walking, right? They're completely oblivious to what's going on from them. Um, there's some of the things I teach some of my clients, things like, for example, Cooper's color codes of readiness, right? Although it's kind of okay, you know, it's kind of passe. It's an old mental construct for security awareness, but it does kind of work. You have condition white. Condition white. If you're in condition white, I mean, you're basically a potential victim because you're not paying attention. You're asleep at the wheel. You're texting. You're sitting at the dinner table texting, and not you don't have your head on a swivel looking around. You're not assessing your environment. You're not assessing other people. You're not looking at military age males or anybody that could potentially be carrying a firearm and do you harm. You're not looking at their waistbands, looking around their hips. Those are little things that you can do to kind of enhance your security. Nobody does that. Um, the second is, I use yellow. It's a heightened state of awareness. You should always be in a heightened state of awareness. When you're walking down the street, don't be looking at your phone. You have no reason to be texting. What you should be doing is walking. You should be looking forward. You should be looking at dead space, potential ambush areas. You should be looking at approaching people that are approaching, looking at their hands, their waist, looking at their body language. And it's not just in front of you. You should be looking to your back. In the military, when we went out on combat patrols, and anybody that's ever been in the infantry, particularly combat arms, knows that in about every 2 to 3 steps, especially the last guy in the patrol, his job is to turn around, look backwards, right? He's rear security, make sure you don't get hit from the back. Well, you're not moving in a patrol; it's one person, but you should still be walking every couple of steps, look behind your back, look around your shoulder, look into the windows, the reflection, look back. You should always be assessing your environment, even when you're moving. And that'll go a long way to protecting you. But he had no situational awareness. He was just walking, probably thinking about the convention he just came from, who he talked to, what he's going to do. He's going to go home, and just wide open, right? And so the big mistake people make as well, besides being alert, is they just assume that they're safe because, oh, we have police officers. But as maybe most people don't even realize is police shows up after the fact, writes the police
Yeah.
report, and they put out they lay out the crime tape and stuff and the chalk marks. They're not gonna they show up afterwards. They're not going to protect you, right? Security officers might protect you. That's their job to be proactive, but they're not stationed on the streets anywhere. Usually they're not carrying firearms. So really at the end of the day, we're all traveling in this world alone, man. And we need to provide, own personal security, secure ourselves. And there it is, man. There's some things that'll be some lessons learned from that, but unfortunately, the man's dead. I don't know what the reason was. He's dead. Could have been prevented, maybe. I think it could have if he had some type of security on him. Was even one guy, even behind him, trailing him, you know, 25 yards or something like that, looking ahead and seeing who's watching my principal. That guy's looking kind of strange. He's kind of picking up his pace, closing the gap with my principal. You could actually now at that point catch up, draw a weapon if you had to, and take this guy out before he shoots your principal. There's many things that could have been done, but none of them were done because people are too complacent and they think, oh, that'll never happen to me. And then it happens, right? So,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, it's a wild thing to be a CEO and to not have some security. Just base anything. And I mean, but it was also, I don't think this guy was, well, I don't think this guy was a Dale Comstock, but I mean, there is, I mean, and it might just be fearless psychopathy or bravery, but there's something a little ballsy about downtown Manhattan. I mean, that's kind
Yeah.
of, I mean, to his credit, I mean, yeah, you're kind of, there are cameras every, I mean, man, it's the capital of the planet. I mean,
Well, here, yeah,
there's some nuts there or
yeah,
stupid,
here,
I don't know.
and that's interesting. You just brought something up about cameras and things like that. So, um, you know, yeah, there's CCTV camera everywhere, right? There's camera footage everywhere. Um, and even though this guy's completely concealed himself, is there a way to find out who this guy is? Is there an indicator to kind of maybe identify who this guy potentially is? And ready for this? There is. Most people have probably never heard of what's called a gait analysis. Did you know today, based on how how you walk,
Oh yeah, gate, yeah, yeah, yeah.
through CCTV camera,
That's
that
why
can
they
be
say put
analyzed.
pebbles in your shoes, or in China, right? Don't they do that to throw off the gate, your signature?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I've done stuff like this where, you actually, fake, a limp or gimp, and you do things a little bit different so that, your movement's different. Maybe even, if you can change the elevation of 1 foot in your shoe versus the other one, but a gait analysis is a technique for analyzing CCTV footage and then comparing it. So let's just say, I don't know. Um, Maybe you compare the CCTV camera footage in an airport. The guy's trying to get away, or he's trying to he's going to some type of maybe a train station or bus station, and maybe he's manifested somewhere. There's ways of they can, there's tools in the toolbox. Now, that in and of itself may not be enough, but, um, maybe the collection of a lot of different intel indicators might actually create a mosaic. Okay, this guy, we kind of think it's this guy, he looks something like this, versus dude with a gray backpack that's kind of square on his back and a hoodie, and black shoes and with the white soles and looked like a suppressed weapon. That's what, that's what you have to work with. But there's more. A lot of investigators, they're getting they're getting really good at what they're doing. Today, it's getting harder and harder to get away with crimes in public. It's just a matter of, does anybody really want to pursue that? Like all these guys that go in, these knuckleheads that go into these stores and smash jewelry counters, they're all on CCTV camera. Could they be PID'd? I think so. There's a way to do it. And is there anybody want to put the effort into trying to, capture all these guys? Probably not. You know, there's some weird phenomena out there, man. When it comes to security, everybody sees security as overhead, right? Because no return on investment. You're putting money into something that, to protect you, that, maybe you'll never need this person, right? And so a lot of people do get complacent. And this is why pre 9/11, everybody whose guard was down, and then sudden 9/11 happened, and it's like, oh shit, and now everybody wants, to harden their facilities, like the nuclear industry. It was wide open prior to 9/11. And how do I know that? Because I was in that industry, providing security for them post 9/11. And yeah, it was pretty scary, how easy it was at that time to penetrate a nuclear power plant, because nobody assumed that anybody would have the nads to do something, go in there and do something like that. And even present day, that hasn't changed. And I'm not going to call out any brands or anything like that, but there are there are there are very large institutions that serve the public, and that have decided, you know what, we don't need security. We'll just get insurance, right? Which is pretty bad. So let's just say you have a mall. So post now COVID, right? So what happened when COVID happened is all of a sudden nobody had money, presumably, and so they dropped all the security. How do I know that? Because my clients, in the part of the world I'm in right now, also no longer need my service because, well, we're shutting down operations. We don't have anybody coming to us, so we don't need your security services, and and so basically, I didn't get put out of business, but I was close. I mean, I lost at one point. I lost 55 full-time employees. I lost probably around $700,000 worth of canines, and out of business. and those guys were gone, and I lost a lot of money. And then after, COVID was over, you know, um, we went back to clients like, you ready to, re-implement us? And no, 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 we're good. So now what they had was a way out of providing security. They used COVID as an excuse, like, well, we can't afford it. We don't have security. And then when the time comes to man up and do the right thing again, get security back in, they kind of like, oh, no, we're good. We're good. And what they're doing, I happen to know this for a fact. And man, I wish I could, I'd love to call them out publicly, but I won't do that. But now what they're doing is, now we don't have security. We're just going to get a good insurance policy. So yeah, if a lot of people get killed at my mall or my hotel, insurance will cover that, which is pretty, that's pretty negligent to me. So think about the MGM hotel, with the 50 people got assassinated, right? Yeah, they had security there, but did they have adequate security there? And I would argue no. They could invest a little bit of money and put canines, canine teams at all the entry points. And there's a way to detect, guy comes hauling, brings in a suitcase or a bunch of suitcase. They could have easily had the dog sniff that suitcase, and the dogs are trained to pick up, ammunition and firearms. The dog could have said, "No, there's something in that. Inspect the suitcase before he goes inside," right? But they didn't do that because, money, it costs money. So they save money. I'm sure somebody's probably advised them to do that. Put, dogs there, and we don't need dogs. That's stupid. Blah 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 blah. And look what happened. So had they invested money up front, they wouldn't have lost. What was the settlement for that? It was something like $700 million was a settlement, and their insurance company, if I remember right, only settled for like $500 million. And so that meant MGM had to, shit $200 million out of their pocket to pay for all this stuff. Sometimes it's better just to pay up front rather than pay up in the backside. And when we're talking about, people's lives, customers and clients and civilians, innocent people that are, you know, frequenting your establishment, you have an obligation to make sure that you've done everything you can to protect them, and so again, it comes down to complacency and everybody, and it's always my experience working in the security space. People always assume it'll never happen to me. It'll happen to the guy next door. It'll never happen to us, and then it does. And it's sad because I think there should be, for example, in the nuclear security industry, they're regulated by the NRC, and the NRC literally has told the industry, this is the design basis threat that you must protect yourselves from. So it's confidential, that information, but they lay out how many potential adversaries you may come to the facility, insider threats, types of weapon systems, types of methodologies, and you have to defend yourself against that. So therefore, you have to proactively establish mitigation strategies to that end, and so they are forced to do that, and they are forced to pay the money to do that, and they're also inspected. Regularly. They're inspected and tested to see if their security holds up, right, for this what we call the design basis threat. And I think across the board, man, any organization like a mall, for example, like we do that at the airports, right? TSA, right? They inspect the hell out of everybody. And so it makes everybody feel good. Does it actually work? I'm going to argue no. I mean, if you really are intent on introducing bombs and weapons to an aircraft, there's other ways to do it.
Yeah.
There's other ways to take down an airplane. And so, again, I'm being a little critical here, but it's a dog and pony show, man. It's all just, a charade. It's like, come on in, we got TSA here. We're gonna inspect your stuff, and we're gonna shake down mom with a bottle of baby milk for a kid, and just weird stuff like that. And when the reality is there's other ways to penetrate an airport if you want to do it. And will that happen? Probably not. It'll happen if we leave it wide open again, but probably not. That's probably not going to be the next. Terrorists are not going to do that anymore, right? They've already done that. That's like, that's old school. They're gonna ramp it up.
Yeah.
But I think everybody there should be, there's every large institution, particularly that serves the public, and could potentially put the public at risk, should be mandated to have certain security protocols and to at least enhance the security to mitigate, the threats, right, to some degree. I'll use a nuclear power plant. Can they defend against 100 attacking Al Qaeda? No. All right. And so they're not going to be mandated to protect against that, but there's got to be reason, it's got to be reason. And there's where the threat analysis comes in. It's like, okay, what could the potential threat look like? You get your experts together, say, no, it won't be 100 guys. It might be this many guys with these types of weapons. This is what they would have access to in our country. And so it's got to be reasonable. Now, with all that said, New York, I forget how many illegal immigrants. I don't even like to use that word. I like to call it what it is. Criminals have come across the border and has been, ushered into New York, and throughout the interior United States. We brought in a lot of criminals, man. And a lot of murders have been released by other countries. So yeah, go to America. So we're not paying for you in our jail cell. So we have opened ourselves up to huge potential crime. The introduction of weapons of mass destruction. Okay, they've been brought in. I happen to have knowledge of, in this 10, 12, 15 years ago, where caches were recovered down along the border area that had everything from RPGs, AK-47s, prayer rugs in it, ISIS flags. I mean, this is stuff
Jesus.
that's been introduced in our country, right? And nobody wants to talk about it because they don't want to scare people. But there's a real incredible threat out there, and it's not you know, just Americans on Americans, disgruntled, some disgruntled jackass got a gun because he's mad at the CEO and shoots him. It's going to get worse before it ever gets better. And I'm kind of segue off here a little bit because since I got your ear and everybody else
No,
is here,
you're good.
just some food for thought is, what's going to happen when, Trump administration decides they want to deport, what is it, 10, 20, 15 million? I don't know, man.
Yeah,
It's, millions and millions of people now, right? We don't have a record of it, right? What's that going to look like when that happens? And here's my prediction.
probably something like
Uh,
this. You'd probably have
well,
you'd find pinpointed senators or, and I'm for the deportation, but let's be honest, yeah, you're probably gonna have some ballsy acts like this.
and so think about it like this. Um, who's gonna deport all these people? You don't have enough law enforcement to do it. Not even enough National Guard, and uh, and so it's going to become a full-time enterprise, right? It's because there's going to be other components related to actually deporting people. First of all, you got to have a good intel network. We got to know who to deport. Okay, we have to identify. Okay, who got here illegally, and who got a fake driver's license, who actually got a driver's license, not even fake, it's a real one, who doesn't shouldn't be having one because they're here illegally. Now, so you got to work through some things, right? Because guys can hide behind, legitimately issued driver's license and credentials, but they're still here illegally. So we've got to work around that, identify those guys and girls and everybody else, families, and then we've got to do what? We've got after we've identified them, we've got to detain them. We've got to somehow harbor them somewhere in a staging area, call it a detention center, whatever you want to call it, right? And then we've got to move them to the point of deportation. What does that mean? Maybe to the border and drop them off at the Rio Grande, tell them to swim back the other way, or do we fly them out of the country and drop them off somewhere else? How's that going to look? And then there's these transportation issues. So, we got to move these people, detain these people. And since you don't have enough LEA, I know the government does not have enough manpower to do that. And, just the intel part of itself, doing the intel analyses part of it, and the investigative work, that's going to require, quite a bit of effort. It's going to require people. Then you have to have the operational arm where we actually go out and find these guys and try to detain them nicely, and guess what? Probably families that came across the border will probably go, willingly without giving any resistance. Their families, kids, I don't want to cause no trouble. Okay, sir, I'm going to leave. But the ones that are not going to leave and the ones I think will cause the most trouble are the ones that were sent over here deliberately, i.e., cartel members. You got these military age males that were introduced, deliberately from China, Iran, from all around the world. We have military trained, military age males that have been infiltrated into our company through this pipeline, and they're in our country. You think they're going, oh, yeah, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm going to leave. No, what they're going to do is probably the ones that give us the most resistance. And how are they going to do that? Well, I'm going to tell Americans stand by, because probably what's going to happen, which is going to start if you see in the future, is more ambushes, more assassinations, literally ambushes, IEDs, VBI. You're going to see. Um, we're gonna go back to the era of the IRA and the British. We're gonna see ourselves in a situation like that. We've got a threat that's living amongst us, has blended in, um, you know, but they're waging a war in the shadows. One, they're not going to get deported, and this is an opportunity now to tax our resources, our law enforcement resources, military resources. And if I was Trump, what I would do is I would literally deputize paramilitary companies, right? Take anyone you want, right? Blackwater, Triple Canopy, Dale Comstock's company, and go, okay, you're deputized, and you have now law enforcement powers, and this is your sector, and your mission is to find these people and get them out of here. There'll be standards of performance, right, and things like that. Like okay, you can't beat them up, you just can't shoot them on sight. Same rules apply. We got to do this nicely, humanely, but let's usher everybody out. I think that's what he's going to have to do. I think he's going to have to hire paramilitary companies to deputize them, maybe even attach marshals or whatever with them, right? So you have law enforcement agents with those companies and lawyers to provide guidance, and things like that, and provide oversight. So make sure that we don't hire a bunch of, a bunch of dudes creating a company and they're out there, abusing people needlessly, and just a bunch of rogues, right? It's got to be done within the limits of the law, and we have to be mindful of public perceptions and we don't want to be inhumane, and
Yeah.
make you mad, right? And all these other people, which I don't give a shit about. I hope he disbands that too. But there's going to be a process here, but I think there's more to come, and I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And the enemy's in the wire, man. And I don't think it's going to be easy to get them out. It's going to be a long time, and so just expect more of the same. And, maybe not necessarily CEOs getting assassinated, but I can see heads of law enforcement. Honan, what's the name? Tom Honan, the new,
Holman,
yeah, Homan,
Holman.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, Homan, yeah. I could see definitely that guy's got crosshairs on his
sure.
back, and many others for that matter. And so, yeah, we're going to be going into some challenging times. And it was weird. Is about 12 years ago, 15 years ago, I had a lawyer call me. He's writing a book, and it's kind of like a futuristic, the future, what will it look like, and he was talking about, it was some kind of story, and he wanted my input on what the future would look like, in America. Basically, it would become a war zone from within. And I kind of pointed out back then, I said, yeah, you in the future expect ambushes, expect IEDs, expect suicide bombers, expect booby traps, expect things like this, like in other countries. I expect it here now. It's going to come, and I think it will to some degree or another, right? So times are changing. People need to prepare themselves for it. Doesn't mean you have to live in fear, you know. And keeping a head on a swivel, keeping your nose out of the phone when you're at dinner table, walking down the street. It's not paranoia, it's preparedness, right? And people go, you can't be paranoid all the time. No, it's not paranoia, man. It's preparedness, your life and your family's life depends on whether you're alert or not. In the military, we always say, stay alert, stay alive. And man, that's pretty good. That's pretty good wise words to live by. Stay alert, stay alive. Assess and analyze your environment. Everybody comes along and have a plan. That's the other thing is have a plan. Doesn't do any good to be aware of everything, but you don't have a plan because when it does happen, what are you going to do? So have a plan, arm yourself. Have certain personal security protocols that you in place with yourself and your families, and enhance your survivability.
You gotta have security if you're a CEO. I mean, just basic. Yeah, you gotta have just. I mean, I would imagine. I mean, I don't know. I mean, and I mean, we can't know. It's all speculation. But I mean, you gotta wonder, was this guy personally fucked? I mean, either him or like a loved one, or was he hired by someone who's skimping and not getting a Dale Comstock, and instead they're getting kind of a bottom bargain, hitman.
Yeah.
Was it even this guy's thing, or is this just
Well,
a guy getting cash?
it could be a competitor going, you know what?
Or it might be
Let's
that. Or it might be
here's
somebody in the company is going, fuck you, I'm CEO next, man. Might be some Game of Thrones shit. Like, yeah, take him out.
started waiting for that promotion.
That'd be
No, man.
kind of hard, man. Honestly, if I'm the owner of that company and I find out a VP knocks off the CEO, I'm like, this guy wants it. I'm giving that guy the promote. I'm like, this motherfucker wants it, dude. This guy's cutthroat. Yeah, he'll cut the cancer treatment from your grandma. He killed the last CEO. That's kind of hardcore. But
Yeah, but can he do it from jail? Can he fucking operate the company from inside the
well, I
jail
don't.
cell?
Well, listen, kid, you got moxie. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
man.
there's so many things, man. There's so many reasons this could have happened.
Yeah,
We just got to find out who the guy was. And I would argue he was not a pro. Everybody thought he was a
yeah.
pro. I don't think he was a pro. No. Although he looked very cool, calm, and collected. Look, man, so are serial killers, so are sociopaths, so are
They say
psychopaths.
that about school shooters. I remember watching a documentary about the Virginia Tech shooter back in like '08 or '09. They talked about how he just wasn't, there was no emotion. He was just headshot, headshot, headshot.
Yeah,
That
they
doesn't
have
mean
no
professional. That means psycho.
Yeah, exactly. They have no empathy, right? There's no human connection there. Somewhere, somehow, the wiring system's off and there's no emotion there. So they do become these just
Drones.
murderous people that have no feelings, man. And so that's why it looks like it's like, wow, that guy's really cool, calm, and collected. No, he's just crazy, you know. So, but he's not a pro. I would
Yeah.
argue he's not a pro. Nothing about him said pro. Everybody was really admiring his ability to, clear the malfunction, tap, rack, bang, No, he knew that, he's going to be able to cycle one round at a time because it's subsonic. So he's going to have to pull the slide and then chamber another round in it. So yeah, it was very deliberate, but his shooting sucked. All right, so he wasn't that damn good. And a smart guy wouldn't have shot from that distance at a moving target from the back. Well, just close the gap. Just go ahead and close the gap and shoot him in the back of the
Yeah.
head. One time, you save yourself a lot of time. You got it over with one shot and less attention to yourself. So that's my take on it.
How did he know he was going to be there? Because it wasn't that guy's like daily routine. He was going to a meeting about a merger. How the
Well,
fuck did he know that that CEO was going to be? It's not like he goes to Starbucks every day at 11:05 a.m. How the fuck did he
yeah,
know?
no, he was definitely surveilling the guy, man. He he
Yeah,
he
yeah,
knew the guy's patterns of life, for sure. He's been watching the guy, and you know, and he knew. Yeah, in fact, I think from what everything I was reading so far, apparently he had been around there for a while. He was waiting outside as his convention. He knew the guy was going to come out. You know, he had a pretty good idea. This guy would be coming out the front here. He's going to probably go that way. Um, but you know. That wouldn't have been too hard. And that's even scarier when, so this goes back to my original point about if I had security, one thing I would have for sure, and maybe it's the same person, my security guard is also my counter surveillance man, right? Who's always traveling in trail, nondescript, changes clothes, um, you know, and just doesn't stand out, but he's always watching. So when I run security details, bodyguard details, um, especially in foreign countries, um, we always, I had counter surveillance teams out there, right? Because we know that, if there's going to be an attempt on our principals, that they're probably watching, they've been kind of surveillance for a while, watching our movements, our patterns, looking at our reactions before they hit us. But we always put surveillance teams out first, like in the morning even before my bodyguards got in the vehicles to go to the principal's residence. We already had surveillance out in different places watching to see who's watching us get into our vehicles to go pick up the principal, right? And we would actually, this is kind of a funny story. So I'm just gonna, how should I say this? It was in China, all right, in Hong Kong particularly. There were people that there's a group there of Chinese. They're basically Chinese mafia. You can't miss them, and they have a certain look to them. They're all tatted out, high and tight haircuts. Part of the I think it's called the triad, but they were on us all the time, man. And I'd run into the same guy 3, 4 times in the same day. It's like, this guy again? Why is he here now? Right. And so they were looking and they were watching. Were they going to target the principal? I don't know. The best ones the best ones I came across, I was standing on uh, my principal went into a building downtown, and I was standing on the top of the stairs on the outside, facing out towards the main street. And he just entered, and I kind of turned around, pulled rear security, and I noticed two Americans walking by, a man and a woman. And the funniest thing was, it's like they stood out like a sore thumb. They were both wearing 511 pants. They were wearing Gore-Tex jackets, baseball cap, backpack, right? And they were and it just had that look to them, like DEA written all over them, right? And they look over towards me, and it's like, oh, look at this cool building, and they're taking pictures of this, just this really nondescript
And
building.
you're just like,
But
hey, fuckers.
they're taking pictures of me standing up front, right? And they're acting like, oh, like tourists, look at this. And it's like, no, tourists don't run around dressed up in 511s, like a matching pair. Everything about their demeanor screamed, surveillance, And so, um, you know, but there are some out there that are really, really good. I mean, there are guys I've been tracked before and didn't even know I was tracked until 2 months later. And I really did use counter surveillance techniques, and these guys still were able to follow me, even though I used surveillance detection routes. I did everything by the book. And these dudes still, and I just knew there's no way nobody followed me. I haven't seen a vehicle in the rearview mirror in 30 minutes, miles. There's no way. And I've done all kinds of turns, and I end up at a place and I'm there for overnight. And about 2 months later, I get pictures and photos of me in this location. I'm like, how the hell did they know I was there, right?
Enough
Um,
money, enough manpower, you can get it done.
You can get it done, man. I track people all the time, I had a year ago, I got a call basically to go find a billionaire that came up missing in the Middle East. And I won't name the country either, but because I might have to go back in there. And so I've got to always be careful about, what I describe. But came up missing, a billionaire, just poof, gone, And so the wife decided, here's the funny part, the wife decided a year later, can you go look for him? It's like he's been missing a year, and now you're just asking for somebody to go look
You
for him,
cold, you
right?
cold
And
bitch.
yeah, there was something going on there, right? So she, got paid a lot of money, and I went into this country that I didn't like, very, very weird place. And then while I was there, what I figured out was, now he didn't get kidnapped. He got detained, and he was in a particular prison. They put an ankle monitor on him. They let him make a phone call periodically, like every several months. They gave him a cell phone, let him make a phone call, and the only person he called was his sister, not his wife, right? And that was law. That was an indicator. And then they used, through the phone, we were able to use the GSR coordinates to figure out, okay, this is where the call emanated from, and it was right in the middle of a prison, right? So I had to go there, confirm tonight he was there. And while I was there, they actually moved him they actually detained him in like in a four-star hotel, right? In a really ritzy hotel with an ankle monitor. So, but then I find out, so I started doing more investigation. Who is this guy, right? He's no social media sites, nothing like that. But I had enough information on him. I found out that his father was also one of Forbes' top 50 wealthiest men in the world.
Oh,
That was his dad. And this is happening where his dad's at. And it's like, how can his dad not know this guy's, you know, locked up? So there's some really weird stuff going on
some
out there. But
shady shit.
yeah, it's really some really weird stuff going on out there. And but security, 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 it's not going to go away. People need to stop looking at it as, although it's an overhead and the return on investment is somebody saved your life. And by the way, sometimes you don't even know your life was saved. I was covering down on a woman one time in Paris, and the guy was getting ready to mug her, and he didn't know and what I did was I wasn't standing next to her, stinking on everybody. I was off in the distance, put her out there by herself. She was waiting on the curb for the limousine. I stood way back, and I was watching this guy. He looked like he was probably from somewhere, Middle East, Morocco, or something like that, right? And Little short guy, and he was looking at her, and she was dressed like $1 million. I mean, literally, she was wearing millions of dollars worth of jewelry, diamonds, fur coats, big pink freaking $100,000,
Mink
Versace
shit.
bag
Yeah.
stuff, right? And you know, and so he was walking behind her, and he's assessing everything. He's analyzing the bag. He's looking, and I can tell he's already thinking about, okay, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna grab that bag and run, right? And this is Paris, by the way. So So I'm just kind of standing back, pretend like I'm nobody, just kind of looking around, and checking my watch and my phone, and I'm watching the guy. And then finally, he's smoking a cigarette. He's walking back and forth, smoking a cigarette. He's building up the courage. Finally, throws the cigarette down, and he starts making a beeline for it. And I just took one step forward, and he looks at me, and I go, "No, no, no!" Right? And he's like,
Fuck.
"Okay," and he leaves, right? And the client never knew that happened. Never knew
Yeah.
that happened. The limo pulled up, we got in it, we took off, went back to the Four Seasons. And then um and then the funny part was we get there and there's a bunch of French dudes, well dressed and staying at the Four Seasons. She gets out of the vehicle. She's dressed like $1 million, man. She's hot, right? I mean, I ain't gonna lie. She's a model and blah 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 blah. And she just jumps out of the car, and I'm trying to get out of the car and get around the car because she doesn't follow protocols. No matter what I told her, she just does what the hell she wants, right? It's the problem with, bodyguards. You got to deal with people like that, right? So as I run around her, all these French dudes just stop and they look at her and they're checking her out. And then I could tell one guy's getting ready to make a comment and say something to her, right? And she's kind of like giving the stink eye too. And I'm coming around the back, and he starts to make his move. I go, stop. I said, don't do nothing, right? I don't
Don't
want
make
to
a
hurt you, man.
don't make a
I,
fucking
I
scene.
get it. I get it, man, but I don't want to punch you in the mouth, right? So just don't do nothing dumb, And he looks at me and goes, okay, right? I was like, thank you, man. And that wasn't good enough because we go into the lobby. As soon as you go in the lobby, she turns around, looks at me, and she goes, did you see those men? Did you see the way they were looking at me? And I'm like, yeah.
You're hot.
And what do you expect? You got a mini skirt on, your legs going, look at this. It's like, I didn't say that to her, but I'm thinking, what's the problem, right? And she was just so vain about all that, right? I can't believe, you're looking at me like this. I said, yes, ma'am. I said, yeah, they were a little disrespectful, but, it is what it is. They didn't harm you. And so she goes up to the room, tells her husband, next thing I know, I get a phone call, don't ever let anybody disrespect my wife like that. I'm like, what the fuck? I
You
just,
fuck
I
off.
just I just kept her from getting mugged a minute ago, you know. And see, I didn't tell them that stuff. I didn't tell them because as a professional, I don't need to tell you that other than, hey, you guys need to be a little bit more aware, a little bit more alert. But problem was I already took care of it, and I don't have to make a big deal out of it, scare you to death. And I don't have to tell you I did my job. I just did my job. And so yeah, I caught some flack for that. I'm like, you can't win for losing. But what a strange business, man. I tell you what, bodyguards. Um, I've done a lot of bodyguard work, a lot of bodyguard. I've covered down on millionaires, billionaires, politicians, celebrities, and I hate it. I hate it because usually there's no respect for bodyguards. They just treat you like a valet. Could you please hold my purse and carry it for me? And like, no, and then they get mad at you because you don't want to carry their purse because you're wearing a suit and you look stupid wearing a pink purse. It just and then it's just a lot of disrespect. And you're just seen as the help and they don't get it that sometimes you're there, you have volunteered to put yourself between them and a threat, you know, at your own peril. And you might actually, you may leave your own family behind trying to protect theirs, right? And there's a lot of gratitude, and people they don't want to pay you for what you're worth. Very rarely will you get what you're worth. Now, some will get it. Some will do get it, but a lot of them don't get it. A lot of them will have a bodyguard because it's cool. Shelby, yeah, these are my bodyguards. Look at me, how cool I am, right? It's part of the show. Some guys really really want a bodyguard, and they understand maybe it's better to have a bodyguard that nobody knows he's my bodyguard, right? Maybe he's just hanging out over here. He's hanging out. He's a guard dog, a watchdog out there, right? Some like it for the show. I have I personally I don't like the work, because of a little bit of the humility that comes with it sometimes. And and so and the other thing is, there's other issues that go along with security, and that is, the age of the security, the bodyguards, for example. I always have a tendency to hire guys that are 40 plus years old, married, kids, seasoned, experience, you know, they're not liberty risk. In other words, they're not a young guy, oh, it's so cool, and they're out drinking and they show up next day with alcohol in their breath, or if they show up at all, or they're trying to hit on the guy's wife because she's hot, or their daughters, stupid shit like that.
Yeah.
So I find that sometimes, and I'm not saying all young guys, but I've had issues with that. So I kind of stick to the older, more experienced guys that that are settled and they understand this is a profession, this is a job, and they comport themselves a little bit differently. But yeah, it's now I've had like I said, I've had people that were really respectful and they treated you for paid you your value. I mean, this is gonna probably blow some people's minds away, but I mean, I've made I've worked as a bodyguard for a while. I used to make $2,000 a day plus pass-through costs,
Yeah.
Um, I've lived a pretty good life as a security guard. I mean, most I say security guard, bodyguard. Uh, I've done pretty well in that business, but it's usually rare. Usually, you don't get paid what you're worth. And I have a look. If I charge somebody $2,000 a day plus pass-through costs, the argument is nobody's worth $2,000 a day. What are you doing to earn $2,000 a day? And here's my rebuttal. And this is for any bodyguard out there listening. This is what you tell your client, and you tell anybody else. I'm not getting paid for what I do. I'm getting paid for what I might be asked to do. All right,
Mm.
every day, and that's it. $2,000 a day plus or whatever, right? And that's how I validate it, man. Because what is your life worth, right? It's not the work that you do, it's what you might have to do, and therein is the value, your value. And so that's a little bit of insight on the bodyguard world.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, not for me no more. Maybe when I was a little bit younger, a little bit more single, and not even single, but married, maybe. But today, I'd rather hire guys to do the work and than actually go out and do it myself because it's a tough job in some ways.
Sure.
I mean, living on your feet all day, you can't sit down. Usually, you're not allowed to sit down. You shouldn't sit down. And you're always thinking, you're always watching. You're not on your phone. Not that you need to be on your phone, but you have to live a pretty disciplined life when it comes to protecting other people. You have to be prepared to make sacrifice. You need to be prepared to stand up all day or all night in somebody's hotel room outside the door. Be a sentry.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's got to be worth the squeeze, and I feel like you probably get to a certain point in your life where you're like,
yeah,
I mean, unless it's like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, I mean, really,
yeah,
fucking giving me 5, 10 grand a day, you'll give him the Delta treatment. But I feel like after that, I mean, you've done this shit forever. You've sold businesses, you've done everything. You probably get to a point where you're like, yeah, I don't need
nah,
to. You don't need
nah,
it's no.
nah. It's fun. Look, it's fun for the average guy
Sure.
out there, and it's like it's a good experience, and
Probably
it's
fun
an
if you're my age. You're probably like
yeah,
34. You're like, yeah, fuck it. Give me a gun. We're fucking, I'm Men in Black. Like, yeah, it
yeah,
gets
yeah.
old.
You get to go to all these cool events,
Yeah.
celebrity events. You get to be, but you're not doing nothing but standing there watching and protecting. But you get to experience a lot of things. You get to travel the world. Man, I've traveled all the way around the world in private jets. I've gone to some really cool places and stayed in some nice hotels. But after a while that gets kind of old. At the end of the day, it always comes down to how are you treating me, I mean, yeah, you put me in nice places and that kind of thing, but how are you interacting with me? And nothing worse than a woman telling you she knows more about security than you do. It's like, what? And I'm smarter than you are in this stuff, and she's telling you what to do. And that's, when they start disrespecting you like that, that's when I have issues, it's like, huh, I'm the pro,
Yeah.
I'm the pro
Well,
here,
then you
not
probably
you.
start thinking like, I'm not fucking taking a bullet for this bitch. Like, fuck that. Like whatever.
I will tell you right now, there's a lot of that going on out there too. A lot of these guys out there that have security details, I will assure you, there are guys on that team that are just collecting a paycheck, and when the shit hits the fan, they're probably not going to die for you.
That's the other thing, man, is you got security, you got to take care of them. Like
Yeah,
if I had security, man, I'm giving them whatever they want and more, making sure the kids, make sure their tuition's paid. If I'm asking you to fucking, escape
yeah,
and evade and take a bullet, I'm making sure everything's taken care of. You don't want a guy
exactly.
who's just getting a paycheck. You want someone that likes you and they're
Yeah,
your homie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a guy that, he was a little bit older than me, which was interesting. Very wealthy guy, multi-billionaire, very nice guy. Wife was a cunt, but he was a nice guy. And so every time we went to these events, we'd go to these big events and I was there just security and I just kind of became a wallflower, and with the other guys move out. And he would make it a point to call me over to all his friends, right? All his wealthy billionaire friends, and hey man, I want you to meet this guy here, and he'd introduce me and talk about it. He goes and he just put me front and center, like, he's my buddy, and I'm
Yeah.
like, and so, and I respect that. That was kind of cool. Okay,
Yeah.
he did. me like his help. It's like, hey man, this guy, because we were almost the same age,
Yeah.
uh, but I still didn't take advantage of the. I still call him sir,
Yeah.
and I still remembered what my purpose was, and it's like, hey, nice meeting you, gentlemen, and good luck, have fun tonight, and if you need anything, I'll be over there on that wall, ready to kill people. Okay, so take back off, and but you know. That's when you have a good client because a guy like
Yeah.
that, you'll go out on a limb for him, man.
Yeah.
Um, but his wife, not so much. The way she treated my team, didn't see anybody going. The only reason guys will get, I felt like the only reason guys would try to jump into the fray is not because they want to protect, this bad person that they're protecting, but
They don't want to deal with the fallout.
no, they just want to get in a fight, right? It'd be kind of
All
cool to
right.
get in a fight, right, and have some fun. But because most guys that do this line of work kind of like this stuff anyways, they're always looking for the opportunity to mix it up with the bad guys. But it would probably do it more for that purpose than actually, cover down on the principle. Not always, but sometimes, there are guys out there being covered down by people that hate their guts. I always wonder who's covering down on Zuckerberg and some of these other assholes. It's like, who's really covering down on them and why? Is he really a good guy? I don't know. I think personally, I thought he's a shithead for what he did on Facebook and censoring
Yeah.
people. And there's many guys out there like that. And honestly, out of principle, I wouldn't protect him. Me personally, I wouldn't take a job with him. I don't care how much money you pay me because our principles aren't in alignment. Our ethics and morals are not the same. And I can't justify in my mind protecting you for any kind of money. And so
Yeah.
that's how I feel about it. There's other guys that need the money and they'll do it, and they'll compromise their own moral standards and integrity to do that. I get it. Sometimes you got to feed yourself and family, but um, I kind of operate on principles. I may not be very rich or anything like that as a consequence, but at least I know what the one thing I sleep good at night. So
Yeah. No, I've always thought that, like how would you make sure other than like the president where it's transcended that you got to take care of them.
yeah,
You can't be, hey, fuckhead, get over here. No, you don't do. My maintenance guy is my age, and I never make. Even though I can, I don't. I always make sure to like throw him $20 when he just comes and like fixes something because I'm just like I don't, and that's my maintenance guy. Is just there's a general like just be cool to him, man. Don't
yeah,
fucking
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
There's
At
got
the
to
end
be
of the
that,
day, man,
yeah,
even bodyguards are, whether it's men or women, they're adults. I know a girl that's pretty badass. She's a daughter friend of mine, former Marine, uh, pretty good bodyguard from all accounts. So women can be bodyguards too, no doubt. They have limitations as far as I'm concerned. They do have look. They got physical limitations. They really do. At the end of the day, but they do have purpose. They can be bodyguards, especially for covering down on women. But and they can have some pretty interesting play some interesting roles like surveillance, counter surveillance for you. There's things that they can do as well where they actually blend in. They're very useful. But yeah, it's a profession like anything else. It's for some guys that love it, great. Not bashing it for more power to
yeah,
me personally, I'm kind of moved on from that kind of stuff. I don't mind organizing details and kind of managing and overseeing it, but maybe sometimes I'll actually go out there and participate. But um, I feel like it's for me. I've been there, done that, and it's kind of boring, and
yeah.
I can't just stand around all day watching other people. And I'm like, this is time I could be developing myself. And so I don't know. It's good
That
stuff
guy's
though.
if that guy's making that much fucking money a year, 10 million a year. You
Yeah,
got at least one person. Yeah, like, get a floater. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
I don't, yeah,
And even in that scenario, I mean, the guy doesn't have to be full time. I mean, you don't need a guy on you all the time,
no,
right?
but hey,
So
walking through New York,
yeah,
come
so
work
you
9 to
call up,
5.
hey, yeah,
Yeah,
hey, show up today, pick me up, and we're gonna go do this all day. We're gonna be out all day. So you plan on, blocking off some time for this. He's still getting the same paycheck, but I don't expect him to come to my house and
yeah,
stand at my front gate all night, because then that has another set of issues, right? So if I need one bodyguard, I really need three bodyguards, right? Because, I need
24/7. Yeah,
Right, 24/7, a day off, right? So you got to factor all those things in, right? So this is where your costs start coming in. And then, other benefits, since this guy's working for you full time, if he's sick or he needs, are you going to help with that? There's costs associated with it, no doubt about it, but you got to weigh it out, cost benefit analysis, if I don't have a bodyguard, I get shot in the back. If I have a bodyguard, maybe I don't get shot in the back, And so, you know,
It's,
I don't know, man.
I
It's
mean, yeah, I mean
it,
at that level, just you're just the CEO of anything where that's you're not even a defense contractor. It's like yeah, health insurance company. There's probably some disgruntled people out there. Just,
yeah,
I mean, but I
yeah.
don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know. That's
Yeah, he probably pissed somebody off. He
sure.
probably had a policy. Maybe he didn't personally deny it, but his company did, or and so, you're the HMFIC, the head motherfucker in charge, and so,
Yeah,
you're
you
the,
gotta. Yeah,
and so
it's
who
yeah.
knows? Who knows what? Maybe it was something else. Maybe it was something personal. Hell, maybe I shouldn't say that. I was gonna say maybe somebody's family will put a hit on him, right? Collect some insurance. I don't know. But could be 1,000 reasons why that happened. Or it could just been some lunatic, you know, just some lunatic, and more likely he was a lunatic anyways. But not a professional, in my opinion,
Yeah.
amateur. He did some amateur moves. Doesn't look like it at first. Looks like, wow, he's really cool and smooth and calculated, knew what he's doing. No, I don't think he knew what he's doing. He knew how his weapon operated. He knew enough to pull that slide back and jack another round into it. But he probably also had subsonic ammo in there, so he knew that. So he was familiar with his firearm. Wasn't necessarily a good shot. Tactically, he was not very good because he pretty should have closed the gap and ensured that he got a good shot in with one shot into the back of the head or something like that. So on the tactical level, he wasn't that proficient, if you will. But he proficient enough to shoot his gun and put 3 rounds in the guy. So, mission accomplished, I guess. Could have been
Yeah.
done better. Not a pro, amateur. But doesn't matter. I mean, there it is, right?
I
The
don't.
two guys
Yeah.
Trump were amateurs too, and
Yeah.
but I still kind of keep looking at this whole MK Ultra thing, man. It's like, was this guy maybe brainwashed by somebody? Was he somehow recruited and groomed into this thing,
They started that shit in the 50s. I mean,
Yeah,
look at cars and planes and computers in the 50s versus now. If all of those progressed to the level we've seen, why wouldn't those techniques also progress? You don't
yeah,
need, maybe it's not
yeah,
giving them acid and saying, you gotta kill the Soviets. It's some modern version of it. Could probably do it through subliminal messaging or,
yeah,
fucking electromagnetic pings through your phone or
yeah.
whatever. To think that you can't do that, you absolutely could. You
Oh yeah.
absolutely
Oh yeah,
could.
the evidence is out there all day
Yeah.
long.
Yeah. And why
Yeah,
wouldn't you? It's an asset that doesn't know they're an asset. You
right.
can't torture it out of them. They don't
Yeah,
know.
crazy, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, I don't know. I'm gonna say it was just a lunatic, man. Was mad, something happened, personal, got a gun, happened to be a suppressor, and shot the guy. You know,
But
it's just like,
that kid
that's
that
how,
got his head scooped off in Butler though, trying to shoot Trump, you get to that level, then I start thinking MK Ultra.
yeah, that's what I do believe that one. There's evidence to suggest that, he frequented some of the same firing ranges as
Uh-huh.
special agents were shooting at. This
Uh-huh.
tracked his phone back and forth to in and around the area of the FBI building. Kind of weird, right? There was too many, even that's, when that had, I think we were on the podcast together that day, there were too many weird things that just didn't add up, like there seemed to be some deliberate gaps in security, like no drone, no extended perimeter, no patrols, it's just like they just deliberately left this one area wide open, straight shot at this guy, man. That's just too suspicious, man. And I don't think anybody is that incompetent that they left that open accidentally. I believe that,
That was
you know,
complicit.
that field of fire was deliberate, man, no doubt about it. And if it wasn't, every swinging dick on that, every chick, every dude that was part of that detail should have been canned, fired just
Yeah.
for being incompetent, man. They were
Yeah.
way outside the set
Kid's
for
got
sure.
no social media. He's the most passionate person ever, willing to shoot
Yeah,
Trump, but he has no
yeah,
social media posts. His house gets scrubbed, even the silverware's missing. Yeah,
yeah,
dude, that's a fucking
yeah,
that was
yeah,
an op at the highest. This isn't a CEO of United Health. This is
yeah.
Trump. That was a fucking hit at the highest. I don't know if it's a brain implant or if it's LSD or subliminal met or whatever the fuck. That
Yeah,
was probably
yeah,
whatever cutting edge brainwashing.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. There's some, yeah, for
it's
sure.
fucked. But yeah, let's wrap this up, Dale. I appreciate you doing this on short notice. And guys, please go thank Dale for doing this episode and all the episodes he does by going and buying the book American Badass and go follow him on Instagram and all that good shit. And Dale, as always, man, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
All right, brother. Be good, man.
All right, man,
Take
you
care.
too. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you for watching.